Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode from FPL the Onion. It is the first episode of the 22-23 season after the game was launched yesterday. And it's myself and Nick chatting away for another week. Nick, how's it going?
Very good, thanks, mate. Very good. It feels like about a year since we did one of these, although I think it was about 3 weeks since we were on together. I know you've done a couple of interesting things since I could join you, but I'm very pleased as well. Actually, I'll give you the credit for your pun on the opening slide, because normally I love a pun, but this one's pretty strong. So
yeah, it's
give you
game release, but also we've got some cash to spend, I think. How excited were you on a scale of 1 to 10 for it being released yesterday?
I was in the office yesterday, and I'm in Andy's Let's Talk FPL Slack channel, and so I turned my notifications on for that, because normally I have them off and I just kind of check in on match days and stuff, because you get a lot of messages and I don't want them all popping up. So I turned the notifications on that, and then saw when somebody was saying, it's refreshing, or it's going live, or the color scheme's changed, or whatever. So I knew when it was about to go live. And then I was sat there kind of refreshing it, and when it did finally load, or when it did load, it didn't take very long. It was like 2 or 3 minutes. And then when it loaded, I utterly panicked. I got so excited that it was there on screen, because I got quite a low ID last year, and it was really easy to remember, and it's really easy to put into live FPL, etc., etc. So I really wanted another low ID, and I literally panicked, and I went through the screens really fast, then clicked like auto select. My team name was like 1 or something like that.
Yep.
And clicked submit, and it said, "Oh, the game is finished. Like, please come back next year." And I was like, "Oh no, it's not working." So then I refreshed the page. Then I couldn't find the auto select button again. And then by the time I found it, I got 2802. So I was pretty chuffed with it. But the level of panic just showed how excited I was for it to be back.
Excellent. So you were probably amongst the first people on it. Like, did you get a tip off, sorry, or you did refresh at a good time yourself?
No, I didn't. Because by the time basically the screen goes from showing last season's info still, so you can still see your points from the last game week, and then suddenly you kind of click on a tab, and it just takes you to the game is uploading. It's kind of almost like a match day. The game is uploading.
Yeah.
And so then when you know that happens, that's kind of the first indication you get that it is going to go live that day, because it was quite late in the day. I can't remember what time it was. It's like 4 o'clock or something, but it was quite late.
Yeah.
And but as soon as that screen then changed to kind of the game's uploading, then you kind of knew that it was going to be pretty quick.
Yeah,
And
sure. And at that point, did you just refresh yourself, or did you then just wait for someone else to sort of tip you off?
I at that point realized that I should have downloaded a Chrome extension that would do an auto refresh.
Right.
So I then went and got a Chrome extension that did an auto refresh, and got it to refresh every 5 seconds, and then so that I could literally read a document on my desk while it was doing it. And it didn't take long. It took like 2 or 3 minutes, and then suddenly it was there. And I had to turn off the auto refresh at that point, like urgently.
Sure.
So it was just an absolute mad panic. But there was a guy in Andy's Let's Talk FPL Slack who got ID 8.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy, you said.
So pretty amazing.
I should just say before we move on, Nick's video is lagging a little bit, which does make you seem sometimes like you're laughing at your own jokes or like in another time zone. So apologies for that if anyone's weirded out by Nick's behaviour.
Oh, I am definitely laughing at my own jokes. I always do that.
2802. So what was it, 824 you had last year? So still pretty decent. Got good consistency there.
It is. It's easy to remember, and that's really the main thing. I don't want to be looking it up. But yeah, the season before, I think I had like 74,500. So again, it felt like a three-figure ID. It's nice to get a nice round number. Yeah.
So I got about 25,000. I was also at work, but I was interviewing someone, so that meant I was pretty locked down for a little bit. But luckily that finished, and I managed to get on with, I don't know, it was probably about 15 minutes, which I'm fine with that. I was thinking, I went through quite different stages of thinking I am really bothered about this too. I'm really not bothered, but I thought I probably would have either got a really low one if I was able to be on it, or a really high one. So I don't know, actually, when I got somewhere in the middle there, it didn't really affect me too much. I think it's got 2 digits the same, so I can hopefully kind of remember it. So it's fine.
Yeah. The thing that cracked me up is there was a guy in the Slack channel, because again, people were just posting their numbers and stuff. And he was like, "Oh, I can't believe this. I had to go and pick my kid up from school just at the time that it launched. So I only got like ID rank 250. I'm like, hang on a minute. You were picking your kid up from school. How did you still beat me by a factor of 10
Yeah.
on this thing? And then somebody else posted something like, oh, I can't remember the exact, and I'm going to butcher it, but it was something like, you had to drive your wife to the hospital when she gave birth to him, and now this, or something like that, which I thought was absolutely brilliant.
And also it's good when I don't know who's got like 100,000 or 1,000th or something, but I think Zoff got 1,800, which is quite nice.
Oh, did he?
And I think maybe Focal got quite a nice round number. So this is sad though, isn't it? We're at 6 minutes and counting, and we haven't moved off the IDs. But I haven't had the full discussion with you yet, so it's quite funny.
No, exactly. No, we haven't had a chat about it. So there you go. It is just literally because it's easy. You do have to put it into those websites, so it is easy or it's nice to have an easy one.
Yeah.
To remember.
So the plan tonight is we're going to do a bit of tinkering with a sharing of Nick's desktop that isn't the clearest, unfortunately, but hopefully it'll be bearable, and we can discuss what we're roughly thinking, because Nick's got about 3,200 drafts to show us from live FPL, and then we've got a bit of Twitter
make sure you let me know, Shirley, when you're going to do that, so that I don't inadvertently share my desktop and you can see loads of confidential information. So.
And then we'll do a bit of Twitter roundup, and that'll be it. But I think the main sort of it's going to be very open discussion, really, isn't it? Because there's obviously the game launching. It means there's all sorts to talk about, but mostly putting together a squad at the moment. How many drafts, in all seriousness, have you sorted here?
I think I've done about like official drafts on live FPL where you kind of literally start a new one to do a different one. I think I've done about 6.
Okay.
But I had done like 3 or 4 before the game even launched, because live FPL had actually been updating with the price reveals. So it's quite easy to actually tinker about and select a team, and even to plan transfers and things like that, because they had all the fixtures and they had the prices that were revealed, and any that weren't were just last season's prices. So it was quite interesting, because when the game launched and they updated a few hours later, some of my teams were unaffordable, and not because necessarily players, like Salah was more, or, Haaland was more than they thought it was going to be. It was that players like Davis from Aston Villa, rather than being a 4.5 striker, were a 5.5 striker, which again, it flagged a few like really strange price hikes and stuff. So
yeah.
I just think, and I messaged you yesterday on this, there is a ridiculously strong template this season.
Yeah, I got a bit upset by that comment, didn't I?
You're not upset, but you disagreed with me, certainly. But I think you'll see it more and more and more. And I think there's a group of about 20 players who are in everyone's drafts, and not just in their drafts, but their whole team is made of that, 15 of those 20 players.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think if that is the case, then I probably can't argue with that. I just think it's. I think my point was that obviously it's pretty early days, and I don't know. I think I maybe was seeing quite a bit of variety, and also maybe just thinking it's a bit early to be saying that. Although certainly the team selected by stats are pretty scary when you see that Haaland's already like 60 plus and Neto's like 30 or something. Maybe.
Yeah, but even the fact that Andreas Pereira is obviously moving to Fulham. I don't know whether it's actually been confirmed now, but I think it's very likely that he's going to go to Fulham, and you think that you get in the team. And so suddenly everyone's like, everybody's 4.5 midfielder is Andreas Pereira. And so, as you say, the template will change between now and, the first deadline, but the template, there will be a massive template, I think, because and we can get onto this, but I do think for it being a good game, not necessarily for keeping the more casual players interested, or getting them interested from the start, it being a good game that is, with a lot of variation in the teams and choices to be made and difficult choices to be made, I think they have made quite a few big mistakes on the pricing, and not on individual players, but just on the whole concept of how they've priced people.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. Well, should we jump straight into it and look at? Oh, sorry, I have done that before. Saying right, share your screen, and then people don't see a huge image of your forehead.
Okay, hang on a sec. Let me do that now. Here we go. So it should now be showing.
Yeah.
Actually's put on my Tinkerman face from several months ago.
Yeah.
I was joking before we went online that if my Tinkerman starts looking a lot younger than me, then we've been doing this for too long. Actually, probably is the answer.
Yeah,
it also looks like
a shave.
Yeah, it also looks like deepest darkest winter there as well.
Well, this is interesting because one of my questions actually, which we were chatting a bit on WhatsApp earlier about key topics to chat about tonight, and I added one at the end, which was, have you seen any drafts with Son in them? But here we are with one, so that's quite interesting.
So I have seen quite a few drafts of Son, but this first draft is called I called this 3 premiums. This is my 3 premium draft because it's got Son, Salah, and Kane, and this could be Haaland, depending on how scared I get for the first game of the season. And somebody posted, I think it was in that Slack channel again, that Haaland's record on the first day of a season, with Borussia Dortmund in the Bundesliga, but he's got like a hat trick on one day. There was one game where he got like 2 goals and 3 assists.
Oh wow! Okay.
So apparently he's ridiculously strong on the first day of the season. Probably because he's fully fit and ready to go. Whereas he's a bit kind of broken the rest of the time. But that might be the one thing that would put me off. And I guess, you're never supposed to plan a transfer or have a transfer kind of penned in because, who knows, there might be another opportunity like Ghazi from West Brom to jump on for the second game week. But so that could well be Haaland. I have started to see today some drafts that have got Haaland and Kane in them, and they're going without. That's their triple. So instead of having Son as their 3 premiums, they're having Kane, Haaland, and Salah.
Yeah.
But I think this just
like as much for sure. I mean that 2 up top, I'm really just not feeling the strikers' money. So having all that up front seems a bit strange.
Yeah, just because again, you look back to previous years and they haven't changed the point scoring system, and yet we all needed, we all used to have 3 strikers all the time, didn't we? 3 playing strikers, and yet the midfielders now, maybe there just weren't so many high goal scoring midfielders, but just that extra point for a goal and the clean sheet, and they seem to be better at getting bonus. Well, maybe it is just literally because the strikers haven't been good recently. But
the beauty with this actually is that Kane and Son, is that you could choose easily then which City asset to go to. I mean, they got the Bournemouth in game week 2. But unless you did a -4, you don't have the flexibility to do De Bruyne or Haaland in.
Yeah, because the thing I love about this, the one thing, obviously I'm afraid that Haaland's going to go massive in the first game, and he's going to be 60% own and Kane or blank, and then suddenly I'm already, 3 millionth. But you're right. I mean, Haaland might, I think he will start the first game if he's fit, but he might not do anything. He might take a bit of time to get into it. Pep might sub him on 65 minutes, and then suddenly, is everyone going to want to jump on? If you haven't got him, are you going to want to jump onto him for the next game, even though it is Bournemouth? Or, is it one of those things where because Spurs have got Chelsea in the second game, you just think, do you know what, whatever happens in the first game with Haaland, I am going to make that transfer because that's the plan.
Yeah.
So, but the thing that's mad about this draft, and I saw this on Twitter, somebody was tweeting the official kind of fantasy Premier League Twitter account and saying, can you just confirm this team is legal? Because it absolutely shouldn't be. And I think this shows, you look at the defense, it's still quite a big defense. Obviously Doherty and Tomiyasu are the only kind of compromises there, because otherwise, there's a lot of people obviously looking at Perisic, although I do think Doherty is a very, very good option. But Tomiyasu, I don't think he's quite as attacking as everybody thinks he is, just because he's an Arsenal, he's an Arsenal fullback, but I don't think he is actually that attacking.
Yeah.
But for 4.5, and this is one of the things we could get onto, that by pricing defenders like Tomiyasu, all the Leicester defenders, Dunk, all at 4.5, they've given themselves no room to go anywhere else. For, it used to be that the defenders of the newly promoted teams, like my mate Steve Cook, I think he was 4 or 5 because they knew he played, and then their non-playing defenders would be 4. You think of Ferguson at Crystal Palace, etc., Wan-Bissaka, obviously Lord Lundstrom as well. They were all 4, but when you price Arsenal playing defenders at 4 or 5, the newly promoted teams, no one's going to pick a single defender from those teams. It's crazy. Like by refusing to put the premium defenders up by 0.5, even just 0.5, like if they put Trent at 8 and Cancelo at 7.5 and Robertson at 7.5, they would have just given themselves that little bit more room to just have that extra price point. And yet they've basically killed the idea of having 4.0 defender, in my opinion.
Well, although wasn't Trent 7.5 last year, whereas Tomiyasu was 4.5, and so was White. It's probably not a great example, but like Dunk was 5, wasn't he, last year? So they haven't moved the top end this year, but they have moved the bottom end. And
True, but Tomiyasu was obviously an unknown quantity. Didn't even know whether he was going to start for Arsenal. I think Cedric was 4.5. I can't remember whether he started the season at Arsenal, but the biggest reason why White was 4.5 is because he was a Brighton defender.
True.
Moved. So I just think it's very strange. The defenders are kind of the thing I've got the biggest problem with in terms of the pricing, because they just haven't. It's sometimes they've killed the idea of having. We all used to get excited about having rotating 4.5 defenders, didn't we? And I just wonder whether in FPL Towers whether they did give themselves enough time, and who knows, what they were busy with, because obviously they were making updates and they're changing the color scheme and they were putting in 2-factor authentication. I know it sounds like I'm kind of doing it down, but as in they'll have been super, super busy trying to get this launched, right? But did they give themselves enough time to have a list of prices, that everybody got a list, got sent round, and then they all had to pick squads, and then they wanted to see how similar their squads would be? Because I think if they had done that, because I don't think they did do that, I think if they had, they'd have found that their squads would have been really similar.
Maybe. You'd think that something as big as this, with all this following, has got some really brainy people in there. Even they could model that and think, well, what's the likely, picks over 1,000 people and see. But part of me thinks that they haven't. They've maybe got, a really good marketing department and, people that maintain the server and stuff. Maybe actually the game analysts and the sort of, the Mark Suddens of this world. They just don't have someone footballing and or FPLing who knows it inside out and would know what most people would do.
Yeah, I mean, I listened to Andy's stream yesterday where he did just a nice hour on the game launching and his kind of initial thoughts, and that was really interesting. If you haven't listened to that, but
I've listened to most of it. Yeah,
and he talks a bit about the pricing. I think he hasn't gone on about it much in the Slack channel, but I think he's got a bit of a problem with some of the price decisions. I mean, they've had he's obsessed with Trent. Like, he thinks Trent is unbelievable. And they have had 8 million defenders in the past. I think Alonso may have been 8 million.
Baines was 8, I think, once.
Baines was 8, yeah. And I think that might have been the season where Baines really didn't live up to it. But there's just no reason why Trent shouldn't be 8.
Yeah.
And, he's going to literally be in everyone's team. Whereas if he was 8 and Robertson was 7, it makes Robertson then it just means that there's more variation then. And I think variation is a good thing, because if imagine on the first game week, 9 of your 11 players get double-digit returns, and you find your 2 millionth in the world.
Yeah, but isn't this talking from our little bubble of Twitter and nerdy FPL players? And Mark's point on Black Box was, imagine you're one of the 7 million casual players that log on, or 3 million, or whatever the number is when you discount bots or whatever, that can put this together and get really excited. And there's going to be 1 million of those people getting excited and clicking on sponsors and whatever and getting the name and the brand out there, where there's going to be 100,000 of us losers doing the same thing. Isn't that the ratio they care about?
I think in a way, though, that's the problem, because if you're a casual player, let's say you've never played FPL before, and yet the hype is, your mates are talking about it, and they've talked about it in the pub, or you went to the pub with the wrong group and they literally spent the whole night talking about it, and you think, oh, this year I'll pick a team. Are you really going to tell if you can't have Trent and Cancelo and Son and Kane and Salah? Or are you just going to be like, oh, I got Salah and I got Kane. So, and my team looks pretty good. I don't think that a casual would load it up and be like, oh, look, I can have all these amazing players. I think they'll just do the best they can in 10 minutes and then save it. And they might come back the next week or they might not. So I just think this game, and this is, I guess, what happens with most things that people love in life, is that if there are people controlling it, there's always the possibility that they can mess it up. Because if, because again, there weren't any changes to the rules, there weren't any changes, again, there was some inconsistency in terms of player position changes, like Jota was made a forward whereas Son wasn't. There's that sort of stuff. If they alienate enough people, I mean, again, they'd have to do pretty badly from here on out to lose this kind of following. But you think how quickly this following's come up. I mean, the game has grown so much. I mean, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was, why do you think the game is so huge now compared to how it was even 5 years ago? Why are people more interested in this game than they were 5 years ago? It's the same game.
Well, unless there isn't a reason there, it is just bots and duplicate accounts that make it look more popular.
Yeah, but you can't deny. I mean, like me telling you that I was at work and I panicked when I was trying to get a low ID. I mean, there's something that's happening. And you look at Twitter and you look at all the accounts that are joining Twitter and saying, hey, I want to get involved with the community. And none of that stuff was around 5 years ago. Twitter was around 5 years ago.
Yeah, but again, did it have the kind of groundswell that it does now? And YouTube obviously around 10 years ago, but the number of accounts. So maybe the question is, where did that community and accounts and obsession come from?
Yeah, it's strange. I don't know is the answer. Unless maybe this is what happens when the generation of Championship Manager and Football Manager players get lives where they can't play Championship Manager or Football Manager anymore. Maybe that
makes sense demographically. Yeah, we've matured into that age where we want something, like we said many times, we can dip in and out of, but it doesn't addict us for an hour at a time. Although here we are, chatting for an hour,
possibly.
So are you? I mean, that sounds like a bit of a depressing rant in a way. Are you upset about that little corner of this game, but then actually excited about still what you can do with it? Or is there part of you that's making drafts and thinking this isn't quite the excitement I've had in previous pre-seasons?
No, I am excited by it, but I mean, obviously we know that. I just think it's a shame because they've missed a bit of an opportunity to make it, to really give us some really difficult things to think about. And I think that would have been fun, and it would have been fun to see like really different drafts. But the game the variety will come in because something will happen in game week 1. Maybe the Nottingham Forest striker whose name escapes me will get a hat trick or whatever, and then suddenly everybody will want him. It will happen. Like, there will still be the players, there'll be a Bowen of this season who, people weren't necessarily looking at, and everybody will want them, and it'll be kind of, how do you get to them? But it's just a shame that from the first game week, where everybody has the ability to pick any team they want, we're all looking at these players. Or if I bring up one of my slightly different drafts, if we go for, let's go balance, no bench. So this is going away from Son. Take a moment to load. But the defense here will be slightly stronger. Is it going to load?
Did you have much of a bench with the last one?
No, I had Andreas Pereira. I mean, obviously, if he does go to Fulham, I haven't yet updated the benches in here yet. So Moda will become Andreas Pereira and be first bench. But, you look at the defense here, it's basically arguably, if you could find another 0.5 to get Reece James in, it's like the strongest defense you could have. Saka is in a lot of teams and gives you that 8 million price point for, you could go up to Bowen, or there's Mount, or there's Kulusevski, or, there's a lot of Maddison, there's a lot of guys in there at 8. Neto is the 5.5 that everybody's on. I did notice that Eze and Elise from Crystal Palace are both 5.5. They could be good when Palace's fixtures get good after game week. It's like game week 11.
Yeah.
It takes a while. It does take a while. You can see Palace's fixtures here. They're not great at the start. But Vieira, believe in Vieira being a good manager and doing a good job. Grealish, I think, especially with the news tonight that Sterling's likely going to Chelsea, and I know we kind of knew that, but I think he has now agreed personal terms with Chelsea. Grealish, if Grealish plays in this team, if you told me that Grealish was going to start, 2 out of 3 games, 7 million for Grealish is absolutely insane.
But he was 8 at the beginning of last season with his £100 million move, and that was guaranteed to get him started, and he didn't do it. So you've got to be a bit careful.
No,
Maybe it's second season syndrome and stuff.
Yeah, and he did have, obviously they have sold a couple of players.
Yeah, he's probably more nailed now, but I don't know.
Jesus, yeah.
At the beginning of last season, I thought it was different. But yeah, I love City's opening fixture. So yeah, having that attacking cover, even without getting Haaland, which I guess you do, Kane to him, would be pretty nice with this one.
Yeah, and even with Grealish, I mean, I love Rashford's price as well, and I think if Rashford is getting in the team in pre-season, and I messaged you about that, and you said, yeah, you need to look at what's going on in the friendlies. But I think, again, I don't feel the need to take any risks in game week 1. So I might just look at those guys and think, right, how are they going to do? And just know that I want to get them in straight away if they look like they're doing well.
Yeah, I can see Man U's fixtures on the right there. I mean, they've got them as green, but Brighton at home, I mean, Brighton can play decent teams off the park and be really frustrating. Brentford the same with all their analytics stuff. And then Liverpool, in one way, looking at those fixtures, they're not easy. But then, I don't know, I have slightly warmed to Rashford over the last 24 hours or so when I didn't sort of think through Ronaldo leaving and Rashford maybe playing, number 9. So if that's the case, then that for 6 mil is pretty crazy.
6.5, yeah.
Right.
And as you say, as a midfielder, if he is playing anywhere in the front 3, if he's playing on the left or up top, and obviously there's still a huge amount to find out about the way Ten Hag's going to play. But the interesting thing about Perisic that I heard today was that and again, my actual stats are not very good, but I invite anyone listening to go and look this up. But apparently the number of times that he was taken off by Conte at Inter when he was playing wing back there, he was apparently taken off before 60 minutes, like some crazy amount of times.
Oh, right. Crazy high number.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And he's 3 years older than that now. So
yeah, sure.
That's pretty concerning, especially with the 5 subs rule and the fact that they've got Sessegnon probably going to want to give him minutes. If they've smashed somebody and they're 3-0 up, he might just think, well, we've got a lot of games this season. We want to keep him fresh, keep him fit. And so, it'd be great if he can do some damage before 60 minutes, but if he's not getting the clean sheets, that'll be devastating, won't it? So,
yeah. I've not really thought about Doherty much, but isn't it the same on that side? They still got like
I think it is. I think it is the same on that side, but I think Doherty's that bit younger, isn't he? Although I guess he is north of 30, isn't he?
Yeah, I've probably got like 30 in my head, but Perisic is what, like 34 or something?
Perisic. Yeah, I think he's 33, but he'll be 34 by the end of the season, I think I heard Andy say.
Okay.
So that's something. I mean, maybe that's a risk, but I just think at 5.5, the guy was an out-and-out left winger for most of his career, and he's certainly got a shot and a cross on him, hasn't he? So,
I mean, that would fall foul of the sort of, rule of don't exactly. But then looking at this team, you've only got him, so that I don't think breaks it too much. You could say that.
I think everyone's gone mad for Neto, and I think if he's 6, he's in no one's team. I think at 5.5, fine, but I know he was injured last season, but he got like 20 points or something.
Yeah, 21 points or something I had.
I mean, the season before he got 120 something, which obviously is great at 5.5, but that was in a completely different Wolves team. They're not setting the world on fire.
No, I'm not upset about the whole Neto thing. I know why people are getting annoyed. I suppose that's just maybe the lack of choice. But look at their fixtures again. It's 3 greens. Like I know United's got 2, but on paper they look a lot better. I think Leeds away and Fulham at home, great. Then Spurs, okay, that's tricky. And Newcastle, I mean, at Wolves that's not too bad. But it's 5.5. Those 2 opening fixtures are great.
Yeah, no, exactly. The first 2. Oh yeah, Leeds and then Fulham. Yeah. Interesting. What are you thinking on goalkeepers? Because the money's so good that Mendy's only 5. I even had a draft yesterday that had Edison in it, but then I noticed that he doesn't ever get bonus points really, because I guess City's defense, in terms of them keeping the ball, not allowing shots, he just never really has to make any saves.
And can I just ask, sorry, before I answer that, all these drafts I presume are all 100 mil on the dot?
Yes, there was one yesterday where I had 0.5 to spare, and I quite liked it because it meant that, you know, if Bowen goes big, I can suddenly get him in.
Yeah. Well, the other thing with that,
I do like the idea of starting with 0.5 in the bank. I just don't think I will. But
yeah, the other reason for 0.5 in the bank if you go Kane is that if Haaland goes crazy and Kane blanks, say, you haven't got to worry about doing it, you know, on the blooming Sunday or Monday night. But if you're on the money and, you know, Haaland's rising and you don't know what the algorithm's doing at that point, you might have to make a really early transfer. And I know there's no cup games or Europe, but, you know, that might be a bit risky. It's not a great reason to have a full 0.5, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And I think you're right. I mean, I guess the only hope is he'll be so massively owned that there won't be anybody left to buy him.
Maybe. Yeah. It is crazy though. I think he is the highest, isn't he? He's like 65%, Salah's 60. So I mean I've really wrangled with the Kane versus Haaland thing, and yeah, the switch after game week 2 when Kane's got Chelsea. I'm still really undecided, but I'm really torn on that. I think a lot of people are like, oh, you just got to have Haaland. He's amazing. But that Southampton fixture with a little graphic I got later is you've got to be a bit careful not to underestimate that. But just going back to keepers, I've only had 4.5s. I've only probably made about 2 or 3 drafts. I mean, I've watched a few videos and stuff on people discussing it. The only 2 people I've really seen is Raya and Mendy, and that's fair enough. I'm a bit torn though on Chelsea's fixtures. I definitely want one defender / goalie, but as soon as I put Chilwell and James in, I think that's quite a lot for. I mean, the fixtures are okay, but you know that it might be a back 4, and I know there's all obviously before pre-season, so we've got to look at all of that. But you know, what centre backs they're going to buy, blah blah. And then I think, well, if you're going to have James and Mendy, say, isn't that just as risky? I know Mendy's a bit cheaper, but another 0.5 down to Raya might be quite nice. I don't know.
I think the thing that was attracting me to Raya as well is that, you know, at 4.5, the way that he was scoring points when he was in the team last season, I guess the only issue is Brentford could have second season syndrome. People figure them out and suddenly they're leaking goals left, right and centre. But I think he, even against the likes of, I think the only person who was scoring better than him was Alisson when he was actually in the team. And so if he does stay fit, and it is quite rare for keepers to get injuries. So I just think, you know, in a way, with the money that we've got to spend, it does look great to have, you know, a top 4 keeper in there. But I think he will be quite good value, and I think we will want that point. You know, yesterday when I had a draft with Edison in it, a whole million more, I was like, oh yeah, great, this looks brilliant. Especially when I think it was Mark who was talking at some point about how good that City defense is, and just having 2 City defenders is amazing. And we always discount Edison, but actually, you know he's going to play every game, etc., etc. But $1 million is a lot, isn't it? So
just looking at what the ticker says for this. So Chelsea's first 8 fixtures, they're ranked 3rd best. Brentford's, they're ranked 5th. So I mean, obviously Brentford being top 5 is impressive, and that's why Ray is in there. But Chelsea's better. Are they 0.5 better in keeper? It's tricky. Next 8, if you wait, the early fixtures better. Chelsea are 4th, and Brentford slipped to 6th. So both of them slipped 1 place. So it's tight. It's just what value do you put in that 0.5?
It's still pretty good though, as well, isn't it? I mean, the fact that those fixtures are that good for Brentford.
Yep.
Pretty nice. But yeah, I brought up another draft here. This is a 4-5 one. So basically, the choice here is Luis Diaz over Robertson.
Yeah.
And I quite like this one as well. Martinelli is another player in that probably 20 or 25 players or whatever it is, but I think he's good value at 6. Although again, you don't know how nailed he is. But this draft is literally, I think, swapping. Is swapping Robertson out. And I think on the bench here, I think I've got Tomiyasu in a 4-5. And the thing I really like about this is that you can, and you could even have Dunk here, but you start with Perisic, and then when Perisic has Chelsea, you bring Tomiyasu in for that game. So it is nice to have a strong first bench option who is going to play.
What's Tomiyasu got in game week 2? Sorry,
he's got Leicester at home.
Okay.
which isn't obviously amazing, but it's better than Chelsea away. And I think the problem with having 5 at the back is that you can't then have that cheaper option that, you're going to have a much better bench option with a 4-5 defender than you are any other 4-5 position.
Yeah.
And so by having 5 at the back, even though there is amazing value there and those players are, great value and can go big, you can't then have that really good first bench option. So I do quite like this draft. But again, a lot of things are very similar. It's just obviously upgrading to bring Martinelli in for the 4-5 midfielder.
Martinelli's the one on both these last 2 drafts that upsets me a bit, but again, this is where pre-seasons are going to be so helpful. If he's starting on the left, Smith Rowe's not anywhere near, which I think is the main rival to him, then it's a no-brainer. I mean, those fixtures, well, Palace I think actually is a bit overrated, but the rest of those, again, I'll just flick to what the ticker says for attack, because obviously that's just summarised as all green. Yeah, actually Palace here is red, but then the others are decent. 2 promoted sides in the first 4. Leicester could be leaky, so I do like it. But I mean, if you want to double up in attack, it's hard, isn't it? What is it? Is Odegaard 6.5? Obviously Jesus is 8. So
I don't
where do
rate.
you go after that?
I do quite like Jesus at 8, but my one concern with Jesus at Arsenal is you think Jesus in his last season at City was always coming in he was playing on the right, wasn't it? And he did pretty well, but he wasn't playing as main striker. And I think he will at Arsenal, but you think unless they're going to change their system, Lacazette was getting more assists than he was goals last season. And he was kind of playing the foil for the likes of Martinelli and Saka and Odegaard and those guys to run on past him. And so I do like that price for Jesus. And again, when we think about classics, and if he is going to play centre forward, he's playing in a top 4 side or a very good side. But I think even at that price, I'd rather have the likes of Luis Diaz or Saka even. So I did have a draft for Jesus in it yesterday. I don't think I'm going to start with that because I'm a bit concerned about it. But I agree, Martinelli would be a risk in this team. And if I could find, I could bring in another one of the 5.5s, but that's the thing. And that's why I do because the other thing is, and one of the things we can discuss is, which do you prefer? Because if we talk about the players that are nailed in these teams, who I think you should have, or you not that you must have, because I've seen a lot of drafts without Cancelo, etc. But I think for me, you have to have Trent, Cancelo, one of either James or Chilwell. You have to have Salah, obviously, and then you have to have a Kane or a Haaland.
Agreed.
Outside of that, I think you can play around with it. But as I say, I haven't seen many people playing around with it. They've got Neto, they've got Saka, or that because again, people are talking about having these 8 million spots, and I completely agree with that. But the fixtures come into it, don't they? I think Chelsea have a good start, so you could have Mount as another 8. And I was quite surprised when I looked the other day at how many attacking returns Mount got. I felt like he was pretty disappointing last season for large periods, but actually he did really, really well over the season. So maybe I'm ignoring people like Mount to my peril, but Luis Diaz with Mane going looks pretty solid, doesn't he?
Well, Chelsea got the 3rd best fixtures attacking wise,
right?
But Liverpool are 4th, so that kind of suggests if you've got Salah, Diaz is maybe not the option there. It's better to maybe go Mount.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Just that Spurs fixture is a bit of a bummer, isn't it? And the whole it was really interesting. I think maybe it was Andy talking about the maybe this is a bit meta again, or maybe it was Bowman Late Riser with his favourite word, talking about how being aggressive might be a bit different this season because you've got the wild card space as they are. You can really go really short term, so you don't really need to look beyond like 7 and 8. And Chelsea's fixtures are I got Liverpool in game week 8. Actually, Liverpool's are a bit tricky around game week 8. They've got Chelsea, Arsenal, and City in 4 games. But you can be quite short-termist and just think, well, I'm not planning long-term here. I can be quite flexible with those. An 8 million midfield, like you say, you can move the run around, and there's loads of good people in that price.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, though, knowing me, mate, I could well wildcard into game week 3. So I miss some of these dodgy fixtures and then wildcard it in game week 3. I mean, I've done it before, so
So let's just try and answer some of these sort of 50-50 calls of the. We haven't got them written down, unfortunately, but I'll maybe put them in the notes. So the first one we had, which we've sort of discussed, is Saka or Jesus.
Yeah.
Gun to the head, you're saying at the moment you prefer Saka?
Yeah, I think I do, because he's established in that team. He knows Arteta. Arteta knows how to get the best out of him. He had a great season last season. I think he is, even with the 5 subs rule, I'd be pretty confident that he's going to play most of the minutes. He was on penalties last season until Martinelli took a late one. I've kind of gone without Saka in the past because he feels a little bit boring to me, but and I don't love Arsenal, but I think he is too good to ignore. I think he's a great player. So
And just a couple of other things that sway it a little bit. I mean, I'd probably say it's about 65-35 in favour of Saka, but I agree. Is Jesus has got a terrible penalty record, apparently, I heard someone say. So it's doubtful from that maybe he'd be on pens. And the 8 million midfielders are a lot more attractive than 8 million attackers. And so if you've got Saka, you can, if it goes wrong, move off him a lot easier than you can Jesus.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, because otherwise, if you're going from Jesus back to an 8 million midfielder, it's 2 transfers at least, isn't it? So yeah.
And then question 2 we had was Robertson or Diaz. I think this is really tricky. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's really tricky as well. That's why obviously this draft has Luis Diaz in it and the one before has Robertson in it. I am leaning towards Robertson because he is the million cheaper, and because he is, again, he's very established in that team. He's very attacking. I just have this sense that he slightly overperformed his numbers last season. I know he's very attacking and he's likely to be in the box as much as Trent, if not more, because Trent's always a little bit deeper. But somebody sent me some stats to say that Trent's, they were very similar for expected goals. I think Trent was very slightly ahead for expected goals. Maybe that's because of free kicks. I don't know. But and then on assists, Trent was almost double expected assists than Robertson, and yet they ended up on a similar number of assists. Or I can't remember who got more, but for an extra 0.5, like obviously I think Trent is a no-brainer over Robertson. But I think even against Luis Diaz, I think with Mane going, I mean, yes, they've bought Darwin Núñez, but he's going to play through the middle. I think Luis Diaz will nail down that left side, or certainly be the preferred choice. But he looked incredible last season. He's a bit like one of those where, on the eye test, you'd be like, it looks like he's, the heir apparent to the best players in the world. But he didn't actually get tons of fantasy points, did he? So
True.
I don't know. Whereas Robertson with the clean sheets, and they've obviously lost the league, and the last time they lost the league to City, they then started ridiculously well from a defensive perspective. So I think I am going to start with Robertson.
And what about neither? I'm pretty sure I've had a couple of drafts with neither. Have you only got drafts with both of them?
No, I haven't. I just think that if you're not going to have, because there's been some drafts where I've had 2 City, 2 Liverpool, and then it's been a toss-up between whether it's Cancelo at the back and then, not being able to have double City in the midfield, or whether it's, swapping Cancelo to Robertson and not being able to have Luis Diaz in the midfield. I just think, given that Liverpool and City are so far, we looked at all the stats last season. We've seen some amazing graphics on it, how far ahead Liverpool and City are. It does make sense to have as many players as you can from those teams. Now, from City, obviously Haaland will be in this team, I'm sure, at some point. But the midfield is still, unless I'm going to take a gamble on Grealish, the midfield is still, you're still at the mercy of Pep Roulette, aren't you? So I just think, you want as many Liverpool and City players as you can have. And I think I am going to try and have 3 because I think you can. So why wouldn't you?
Okay. Next one was Haaland or Kane.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mind the hokey cokey, but I mean, I think it's long-term Haaland. I mean, short-term still kind of Haaland, but if you're looking at literally the first 2, if you had to have one for the first 2 weeks, would you still have Haaland just because of that game week 2 fear? I mean, Liverpool have got Palace, which, I mean, it's Anfield, but Palace can be a bit of a bogey team.
I mean, I have a West Ham away fear. Not just the game week 2 fixture. Like, I think he could smash West Ham. I mean, yes, they are decent defensively, but their centre backs are pretty old school and they're not the quickest. Whereas he is enormous and rapid.
Yeah.
So Andy's going to be on the end of their crosses. So all it would take for me to switch this back is a couple of goals in a preseason friendly, and I'll be on Haaland straight away. And it is, so it almost certainly will happen. It's that fear again that it's going to be Werner all over again. But I think given his ownership, even if he does blank, if I've got him, I'm blanking along with 70% of the game probably.
If you had Kane, if you had this team, would you, as you've got here, captain Salah, or would you go?
Yeah.
Bit,
no, I'm
okay.
I'm definitely captaining Salah game week 1.
Okay.
I just think he got really tired towards the end of last season, and he's obviously just signed that new contract. He knows he's going to be at Liverpool probably until maybe not the end of his career, but certainly the most productive years of his career. Mane's gone. I think actually that will help Salah, because I think he's, especially last season, has been a little bit put down by Mane. Obviously, particularly international level.
Yeah.
I don't think they were always the best friends, even though they, didn't really affect them. But I think Salah might kick on this season and do even better, because he is even more the talisman now.
Yeah. Okay. Should we keep going through some of these, or do you want to look at another?
Yeah. Did you say what your preference was over Robertson or Diaz, or I know you said it was really tough, but
I think I was pretty torn. Your argument, I agree with. That probably would sway me a bit towards Robertson, but I think it's quite tight.
Well, I think with Robertson, you know what you're going to get. With Luis Diaz, there's the potential that suddenly he's getting goals and assists in every game because he's that good.
Yeah.
And he did hit the ground running straight away from being a January signing, didn't he? Which was pretty impressive. So who knows, after a full pre-season with the squad and feeling more comfortable, Mane's gone, as I've already said. Like he feels like he's becoming an established Liverpool player. But, and I do like the idea of having those 2 8 million slots in the midfield. So you can move to
I'm just looking at my my sort of draft that I've done, and I do actually have Diaz, and the 2 8 millions is good. I think I'm really 50-50 on that one. I think that's really tough.
Yeah. How I don't know, I can't remember this in our list. How set are you on Cancelo? Do you think it is just a risk thing? Because I don't think he is as attacking as people think. I know he shoots a lot, but they're always from range, and he's not actually that accurate. And the odd one's going to fly in. But imagine in this team, and this is where the tinkering comes in, you get rid of Cancelo and you get there are lots of good defenders at 5 million, but you get like a Doherty in at 5 million. And then you can go Martinelli up to another one of those 8 million. You can get Mount. You could have Saka, Mount, Diaz. But you don't have Cancelo then. Do you think
you're starting with no City then?
I could always, slam Haaland in then.
Yeah. I think when you summed it up as these are the players that are 95% in the squad, I definitely was glad that you picked out Cancelo, because he's the same. I know what you mean. He takes a lot of shots, doesn't he? And he hasn't thundered one in like Trent does from free kicks or whatever, but City are so dominant, and he becomes that sort of central midfielder. I think he's almost likely more to assist than score. Well, I guess that was the case last season. They get 11 assists.
Yeah.
But they're so good at grinding out the clean sheets, and then because I think he's getting that further forward, all these passings up and everything, and just one assist. And I think it was that game week 18, was it, against Newcastle? He got like 18 points. He's capable of a devastating 15 plus return. So, and I just don't
it almost always feels like the clean sheets not guaranteed, but it's more likely than not every game, isn't it?
Yeah. I think if he was like 1.52 more than say Laporte, Diaz and stuff, maybe, but I just think 7's a no-brainer.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, Laporte's the other one, isn't he? Just because he is so good, on attacking free kicks and corners. He is going to get goals, and goals are just absolutely massive for defenders, aren't they?
Yeah.
When you get them, so yeah, it's difficult. I just think those matchups are the interesting things, aren't they? Where you're like a 5 million defender plus Mount. Does that get more points than Cancelo and Martinelli? And it just depends whether Martinelli gets in that Arsenal team, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, so people talking about 5 mil defenders and being like spoiled for choice, but I don't know, I wasn't massively enamoured. Like people talking about Cash and Trippier and stuff, but I don't know, I didn't look at where they are on the ticker for rank. Newcastle 9th, okay, it's not too bad, and Villa 11th. I just think for an extra 0.5 Spurs, you can get 6th in the table, or an extra mil, then you're into James and Chilwell territory. So I've not really looked at any 5 mils.
for 5 you can get Doherty, can't you? And I think given his form before he got injured, as long as he's fit, he will be their first choice right wing back.
Yeah, true.
And he was absolutely flying. Like, you think in those games around game week 30, he was putting up massive scores.
Interesting to listen to the above average boys or someone that knows Spurs, because if it is Doherty and Perisic, I don't know, they're so attacking, but it partly makes me think one of them is going to have to hang back a little bit, or are they just going to be, you know, almost like wingers? But you know what I mean? It just seems a little bit too attacking if they're both absolutely crazy. Like when Doherty came in, who would have been the left back? What's his name? The Spanish guy, Reguilon.
Yeah.
I think he was hanging back a little bit more because whoever was playing right wing back before wasn't as attacking. But as soon as Doherty came in, it was like, well, we're almost playing with 3 strikers and they need the left back to cover a bit more. But maybe that's another one where pre-season is going to be really interesting. But I've not really considered Doherty, but you're right, that's an easy 0.5 saving because I've seen Perisic in loads of teams.
Well, and not just an easy 0.5 saving. It goes back to that point of he knows the league. And you think, you know, Doherty's obviously stock fell hugely in his first season at Spurs and didn't really recover much in his second, but except towards the end. But he was a ridiculous fantasy asset at Wolves, wasn't he?
Yeah, true.
So he has got it. He has done it in this league, and you know, you think the players that Conte has turned into wing backs and the success that they've had, and I don't remember ever thinking either side of that Chelsea defense was particularly, you know, hanging back. I mean, he had Alonso, and who was the guy who he converted into a right wing back? I can't remember his name, but he was pretty attacking as well.
Sorry, who converted to a right wing back?
Conte, didn't he? I can't remember the guy's name, but they were both pretty attacking. Okay. I don't know. I think that's another one where I think if Doherty is fit and plays every minute of pre-season, I might well put him in ahead of Perisic, just because I think it's less of a risk.
And if in this team, if you did that, would you just bank the 0.5, or is there somewhere 0.5 that's gnarling at you to upgrade something?
It's a good
Raya to Mendy maybe, but is that worth it?
I could go Tomiyasu up to a 5.
I don't
think there are any good 5 million forwards. The other thing I have toyed with is having Henderson at Forest as another 4.5 keeper, but I think especially with Raya and Henderson at Forest, you could miss some. You could end up picking the wrong one each week.
Yeah, I think Mendy is the only one that springs to mind there, or bank it.
Yeah, I think bank it would be nice. Or again, depending on pre-season, you could do Martinelli up to Rashford.
The only problem with Mendy in a way is that if you had, let's say you had Chilwell and Mendy, to go back to Chelsea, if they start quick off the blocks, would you, you know, it's one of those where you've got 2, would you be not tempted then to get, say, James in this team?
Yeah.
And that almost, you know, actually blocks you out of points. But, you know, Chelsea are winning 3-0 and James is getting an attack and return every game. And you're like, great, well, I've got Mendy, I'm getting 6, but James is off there getting 10 pluses. That could, you know what I mean? It scare you off a bit.
Yeah. And that's the other thing as well, where, you know, Chilwell was so explosive before his injury, wasn't he? Whereas James, I think because he was quite inconsistent and then he spent a lot of games playing right centre back, just slightly put off him. But if I think about the way I thought at the start of last season, and I think I've talked about this a lot, but the only reason why I didn't have him is because he wasn't fit at the start of the season. But he's just an absolutely ridiculous player when he plays right wing back, Reece James. And so, you know, maybe I should just try and find a way to get Chilwell and James into this team and into, you know, I have got drafts where I've got them both, but maybe I need to.
That's question number 4, which we've just nicely touched on there. So you'd say Chilwell above James at the moment, or the other way around?
I do, because I think Chilwell will be more consistent. Although I have heard there's a rumor that Chelsea are going to 4 at the back, which would, I think, usually damage both of them.
That's why I'm not massively keen on the double up, maybe unless it is Mendy, because that, I don't know, Mendy then, don't know. No, I'm really torn on that one. I think definitely 1, but I'm really not sure about 2. And if it is 2, where would you go? I'm not sure. But again, that's one way
if it was 2, I would definitely go for Chilwell and James, because as you say, yes, there's a million saving, but James can get 23, 24 points in one game.
Yeah.
So I think that's a no-brainer. The question for me, though, is whether you whether you do in fact have 2 Chelsea defenders. So
yeah. Next question was, would you go without Salah or Trent or Cancelo? Or, is that just a silly question? I think for me that is a silly question. I haven't entertained.
Yeah, I think we've answered that, haven't we? And that's why, again, if they'd made Trent 8.5, again, it would have just been so interesting, because there would have been the people who are like, no, he's still amazing, I'm still getting him.
Yeah.
Salah, I think being 13, I think is good. Him being $1 million more than De Bruyne, $1 million more than Son, and yet still the fact that he's as highly owned as he is shows that he is just, the best. But I just think there's certain areas where they really messed up on the pricing. Trent could have been 8.5, and I think still would have been a question.
Well, I'll just jump to another slide I got on Twitter here about Salah's opening points. You've probably seen this in different languages, but or in different flavours. What he's done on the opening game of the season: 11, 8, 12, 20, 17 points. So
yeah,
I'm scared of that for sure. And I think the easy option, I don't know if it's an easy option and me overthinking, is to go Salah, but there is still part of me that I'm just bringing to this quickly, which I dropped on Twitter a couple of days ago. This is the attacking threat of all the top teams at the start of the season. Look how high on game week 1 Spurs is compared with Liverpool. Liverpool are actually 3rd according to my model. So this says Son and Kane are much more powerful than a City attacker, and then that's much more powerful than Liverpool. And it's really hard to model that in a way, because Liverpool are playing a team where we don't have the XG stats in Fulham, but I just sort of averaged the kind of bottom 4 in the Premier League from last season. And even that isn't enough to turn that fixture better than them Spurs. So,
and how has this been? What's the underlying data to this? Is it like performance on the opening day of the last few?
No, this is just literally taken from this. But
I see.
The downside of this is just the way that Excel colours things. It doesn't really make you appreciate how Spurs is blue and bluer than everyone else, but how much bluer it is.
Oh wow! Jump back to the graph then. I'm just looking at the peaks and troughs of City and Spurs, but actually I don't think they...
Well, they are kind of dovetailing quite nicely, aren't they? Well, I mean, certainly in 1 and 2, that's perfect.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's only for the first couple of game weeks, really, isn't it? And then after that, they actually... Although, no, even in 5, Spurs down, City up. Yeah, maybe the
Spurs down, City up.
Maybe the hokey-cokey is on.
City have got Forest. I mean, at home, that could be crazy. Spurs are away at West Ham, so yeah.
Maybe the 0.5 should be saved to do the hokey-cokey despite price changes.
Thing is, after the hokey-cokey, but after game week 2, you're just going to keep Haaland, aren't you? Newcastle, Palace. I mean, Spurs have got Wolves. This could be a bit tricky. Okay, Forest away is quite nice.
But Wolves looks very blue on your ticker, but again, I wouldn't look at Wolves and think that's better. But then Newcastle away is going to be more difficult for City than it would have been at the start of last season.
Yeah, true. I kind of agree on paper. Wolves is tricky. They maybe just had a bad season last year, but this just suggests they were terrible away.
Interesting, because I would still think of them as pretty good defensively, but Johnny's the other one who's interesting at 4.5. He might be worth a shout over Tomiyasu, because he is quite attacking.
The other thing I thought about with this is just that Liverpool are not that high on all of this. They're in the pack, but they're not massive. And this is obviously team based. So if we do think, like you said, Salah's going to be this talisman, he's on pens. We know he's going to play. Well, Mark made a good point. Maybe it will be taken off at about 60 sometimes, but you think he's going to start most games, whereas you maybe not sure with Pep Roulette and so on. But they don't have that.
You take City out of that graph though, actually, and Liverpool is basically the highest, aren't they?
Yeah, true.
And also, I'm just going to read to you Liverpool's opening 5 fixtures: Fulham away, Palace at home, United away, and then Bournemouth and Newcastle at home. I mean, that's pretty nice opening 5.
True. Yeah.
I mean, even arguably, especially if Ten Hag hasn't sorted the defence out, Man United away, I'll be captaining Salah again, because he could absolutely hump them like he did last season.
In week 3, yeah. This actually has Chelsea as the best fixture, but it's really tight. Yeah, Chelsea. I think I made a point of this on Twitter that game week 3 is really tight.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll probably know by then. You're right, but I don't know. I think Ten Hag is going to sort it out a bit. I don't think I'll captain Salah that week. But who would you captain? Leeds away for Chelsea. That's not easy. Maybe to pick the right player there. Like you say, Newcastle might be tricky.
I think Leeds are in big trouble.
You captain Chilwell or James, even if that was your only asset for Chelsea.
Yeah, I think I would.
Okay.
I think I would. Arsenal have got Bournemouth away. Could be worth Saka. Yeah. But I don't know. Let's see what United like, because if they've had a bad result or a bad couple of results in their opening games, I probably will just captain Salah again.
So the next question we had was to do with attackers. I haven't seen any formations with you with two strikers, and the question was Mitrovic or Toney or Wilson, and then I'd sort of put in at the end, or is it just two 4.5s? I do like a couple of those options, and they're quite romantic options, aren't they? Toney's obviously did okay last season. Mitrovic's scoring record. I mean, Wilson, I see people with. I mean, I know he's got a good first fixture, but after that, it's pretty shocking. I think they got City, they got Liverpool away. I just don't see Wilson, although he's a classic person to go against the fixtures. What do you think?
I guess I haven't given it too much thought. I must put that in the list, because I think last season I didn't do enough thinking about kind of other people's teams and if they're interested in that kind of price point. But I think you think about that. We've talked a little bit about being able to get to players, and this idea of having the 8 million midfield slot, or even two of them, so that you can swap around with fixtures for those, because there's so many good options at that level. If you just have two 4.5 forwards, it's very difficult to get up to a Mitrovic if he gets 3 goals in the first 4 games. Whereas if you start with that price point, you start with Toney. There's a lot of people saying they expect Toney to do well this season. Not necessarily convinced, but as in if you had a slot for a Toney, a Wilson, and a Mitrovic, you could just swap between them when their fixtures are good.
And if you were going to put a second striker in this team, for example, what would you sacrifice? A defender or a midfielder to do that?
Well, I mean, I think his Mitrovic is 6'5". Is Toney 7?
I think so, yeah.
Because I mean, Martinelli, again, you'd have to find the 0.5 somewhere. Maybe Perisic down to Doherty, but you could go Martinelli, swap him out for a Mitrovic, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Because again, you're then, it does make sense, because you're swapping out an asset from, yes, a worse team, but he is absolutely the talisman of that Fulham team, whereas Martinelli is not the talisman of Arsenal. You're getting assured starts, aren't you? And somebody who is going to be the main man. I think he must be on penalties, mustn't he?
Mitrovic.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. He is 12.3% owned at the moment, so we are talking pretty differential for all of these. And above him is his only sort of better known strikers: Kane, Nunes, Greenwood, Jesus, and Haaland.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because if Fulham had a better opening fixture, I think that would be much higher. I think the fact that it's Liverpool means that most people are looking at it and going, no, not going there.
Yeah. Yeah, I've probably entertained Toney the most of those 3, Mitrovic, Toney, Wilson, but I think I'm all about 2 4.5s.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know. I wonder as we get closer to game week 1, I might consider starting with Toney just having that price point in the team.
Yeah.
But he's a million more than Martinelli, isn't he? And by that point, I'd probably be just like, I might take a risk on Grealish in the midfield. So interesting.
Next one was these are a bit more, don't say silly, but probably obvious. KDB over Haaland. I've not seen many teams with KDB in.
I've been thinking about this. I thought about it a little bit last night. It could be a really, really smart play, because I know he's 0.5 more, but he is obviously a known quantity. He's one of the best players in the league. Although last night YouTube served me up a video of why Mourinho sold De Bruyne from Chelsea, and he was playing against, I can't remember who it was. It might have been like Sheffield United in the League Cup or something, and this highlight reel was just how terrible he was in this game, and it was pretty shocking. But we know what De Bruyne can do. He's amazing. Whereas Haaland, there is the risk that there's the chance that he doesn't do it, and then De Bruyne is going to be a real differential. And I can't remember who I was listening to. I think it might have been Black Box, where they were talking about if you can have a differential who is an unbelievable player. They're talking about it in the context of captaincy.
Yeah, I saw
that. Imagine on the first day of the season you've got De Bruyne and he's like 3% owned.
Yeah, could be 14% at the moment.
Is he 14? Okay, fine.
No, but that's low, isn't it? And if
Yeah.
Haaland's 60 and he's going to be pretty well captained, Salah's 60, he's going to be well captained. Just West Ham away and De Bruyne.
Exactly. Yeah.
Everyone's talking about he's going to become the assist machine. Haaland's just going to be in the box. He's just going to be feeding him. Back to the sort of Aguero days. I don't think Aguero and De Bruyne were in the team together, were they? But Aguero hogged the goals more than it would be with like a false 9 or something last season.
They were definitely in the team together for a few seasons. Maybe not in Aguero's prime, but Aguero was still banging in goals, wasn't he? But they were definitely in the team together.
But yeah, I think that 0.5 is maybe a bit of a tempter. So yeah, for me that's Haaland.
There are so many good midfield options, because that's the other thing, is that if you don't have Haaland up front and you stick with a 4-5-1 or a 5-4-1 like I've shown, you're then having to have a forward. Is it Mitrovic? Is it Toney? Is it
it's true.
Wilson? That's probably the thing.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's a bit like the end of last season, isn't it? We were really struggling for strikers, and everyone was like, well, Kane kind of, and that's probably how a lot of people got burnt with Son. Kane fits that bill quite nicely.
Yeah. But I'll bring it back up. The more I think about it, and I think I saw this from Late Riser on Twitter as well, I really like the idea of starting with Son as well. Because yes, you're not going to captain him because you're going to be captaining Salah or Haaland probably, but Son can get. We saw what he did at the end of last season.
Loves playing Southampton, albeit more away, but Southampton could have one of their 9-0 days.
Yeah, and again, I know we're not. Although there is a lovely fixture. Look, check this out on live FPL. I don't know how quickly this will load, but if I show the 3 premiums versus, let's say, the one I was just showing, I think it was this one, but it literally grays out everybody who's the same.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
And it just shows you might be slightly off.
Yeah, I can't see the left-hand side, but what have you got there? Doherty versus Perisic, Tomiyasu versus Saka.
Is there any way I can move this? Kind of moved for a second there, didn't it?
Yeah, kind of. You can move it the other way if you want, but I don't know if that's easy.
Let me see if I can shrink the window down a bit. Is that doing anything?
That's all right. We'll just read them out. Yeah, top one is Doherty versus Perisic, so that's kind of like for like. Then Tomiyasu versus Saka.
I don't know whether it is like for like. Hang on, I definitely can do this. Let me move it across. There you go. You can see that now. You can see the puffins in the background, which is nice. So I don't. This is the kind of thing. Like, this is why I love live FPL. If I haven't said, and I was going to tweet about it, but I didn't want it to sound like I was kind of virtue signaling or something. But I love this site so much, and I've used it so much, and I think that Ragabolly is such a lovely bloke that it wasn't a big thing. But I have donated to this site, and it was £12 for 12 months. It's £1 a month, which is literally nothing. And I use this site all the time. So I think if you are using it a lot, please do consider supporting Ragabolly, because I think, again, £1 a month from us doesn't seem like a lot to us, but it'll obviously, if a load of people sign up, he'll finally get kind of the reward, the financial reward for putting together such a ridiculous site. So, and obviously nothing's behind a paywall or anything. So it's nice to be able to support him. But yeah, so Doherty against Perisic, is that a choice? If Doherty's playing a lot in pre-season, then it doesn't seem like much of a downgrade. Tomiyasu is really against here, because I think in one of these drafts I had Tomiyasu on the bench, didn't I? So it's almost like Tomiyasu against Pereira, and I think that's quite close. And then it's kind of Son. Obviously the additional thing you're getting for not having Son is having that additional 8 million midfielder in this comparison. But we know that Son, it just really depends, doesn't it? How much you feel like somebody like Luis Diaz could go big, because if he does go big, he could match Son, and then suddenly you've got Saka as well. So that's the trade-off, isn't it?
It is. I do like Son in a way just as well, because if they don't look great, he's an easy jump off, and then you can just go to anybody in 8 mil, and then suddenly you've got a lot of money to play with. I don't know, if Son had like 5 mediocre fixtures, none of them great, none of them bad, it's hard to know when to jump off. But
yeah,
at least you've got that option in game week 2. As we said, Wolves, I've got it as blue, but yeah, I think that might be quite tough. And then Forest, okay, so you could almost jump off him in 2 or 3.
Yeah, true. That's the thing, isn't it? Having that extra expensive player, as you say, you can go to pretty much anyone. And again, if it really goes badly, you can just wild card in 3 or 4, can't you? But
yeah,
I just don't expect with Son for it. I don't expect it to be going that badly. I mean, this is interesting. I brought another one up. This one it's comparing Doherty with Robertson, I guess, because they're, Doherty's more expensive than Tomiyasu. But if you compare Doherty and Perisic still and keep them on the same level, you're comparing Tomiyasu to Robertson, which is obviously a massive change. And then here you've got Martinelli against Grealish, which again, Grealish is that risk. But then you've got Saka against Son. So here the trade really it's that Robertson versus Diaz thing we were talking about earlier, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is allowing you to have Robertson instead of Doherty or Tomiyasu instead of Son. But I don't know whether I've got a draft. I can't remember whether I've got a draft with no. So in this Son draft, that is the thing I'm giving up, is the third Liverpool player.
Yeah, okay.
That's
a really nice comparison tool, that, isn't it? Is that on the free one as well, or have you got to pay for that?
It's totally free. I mean, the £12 is basically a donation. It's
okay.
It's a thank you for putting it together. But yeah, it's totally free. It's an amazing tool that to compare drafts.
Yeah. One other thing I just noted as well when we were going back to Neto is in terms of the I love the which teams conceded 10 plus points a lot last season. The highest in the first 6 fixtures of any team is Wolves, as in they have favourable matchups. They got Leeds, Fulham, Newcastle. Well, every promoted team I've assumed at this point is likely to concede those. So that again, as a team, suggests that Wolves, there's something in that to invest in attack. And yeah, Neto's obviously been that talisman before. How much even is Jimenez? I've not seen him mentioned at all. Probably 7.
Yeah, I haven't seen how much he is actually
on the first page at all. Yeah, he's 7, 2.3% at the moment.
Wow.
But yeah, that's a jump up, isn't it? 1.5 up from Neto.
Yeah. I get, but he will play though, won't he? I mean,
yeah,
he's their first choice. That's the other thing. Like Neto might not start the first game, and suddenly we're all relying on him.
But Neto in the season before last, 5 goals, 8 assists. So it's decent for what price was he? He was 5.5 then as well. Interesting.
Yeah.
So he can do it for sure. I remember him getting a couple of like 10 pluses maybe in my head. Yeah, we'll see in pre-season what he's like.
Yeah, I'm just on here now trying to swap this to swap Robertson and Diaz around, and it leaves you with 5.5 for that midfield slot. I think it means you can take him out. Yeah, so it means you can have a 5.5 first bench midfielder, which is pretty nice. This is where you start suddenly getting money spent, because you could just have Andreas Pereira here, and then you've got an extra million to spend. Yeah, you can have Grealish here.
That's probably where the draft came from, wasn't it?
Yes. But if you like Martinelli, if preseason looks good, then suddenly you've got an extra million somewhere else in the team.
Yeah. I was kind of simplistically thinking, I don't know, a little moment yesterday that preseason's not going to tell us much. These teams do look pretty settled. Maybe this was my moment of thinking the template does exist, but there is going to be so much change in there. So it's in a way quite funny that we've spent this amount of time looking at this, because it could be that only half the team exists when we get to the deadline.
Yeah, true. But I do think this is the thought process you have to go through, though.
Yeah, true. And certainly as Andy said, the teams to focus and the kind of pricing to understand is important.
Yeah, exactly. And then it means that as things do change during pre-season, you can react to them, and you can, like Andreas Pereira joining. I don't know why he hasn't updated here. Is it going to work now? Yeah, it's worked. But like, here now, I've got triple Liverpool. I've now got a triple Chelsea defense. I mean, that is the best defense you can get, I think, or one of. And yet I haven't had to compromise too much really in the midfield. And I've got Pereira on the bench. So I think I do prefer this.
Yeah, that's quite nice.
It does mean, if Pereira isn't first choice at Fulham when he goes there, then you've got a pretty weak position here. Whereas before in the draft, I had it before with the one that had Diaz in it, I had Tommy Aspie first bench. So how important that, if you screw up with the bench, if Neto doesn't start the season and you have and Andreas isn't either, that's almost like an early wild card.
Yeah.
Unless there's another 4.5 midfielder that you can, or a 5.5 midfielder you can go to. So
there are only 3 5 million attackers in the game. Surridge at Forest, someone at Brighton, and Rondon at Everton. So if you had that 0.5, you wouldn't put it in attack, I don't think. I don't know a lot about Surridge at Forest, but they don't scream out as more likely to get points than a 4.5.
No.
So
no. If Ragabolly's listening, the only thing I would add here, and maybe you can do it and I just haven't found it, is that it'd be nice to be able to, like, I've made these changes within my July 4th with most prices thing. It'd be nice to now be able to save this as a separate one, because I've found that, because otherwise you have to go in and start a new one
again. Right. Okay.
Do a new plan and then you have to build it from here.
Right. Yeah, you can't sort of clone it.
No. But imagine that. I did have it last season actually with Rudiger, Alonso and James, I think. And when Chelsea conceded a goal, it was devastating.
Yeah. But then I remember it is so nice for only the double up, I think, when it does come in and no one's got it.
Yeah.
I think that maybe does depend on their formation.
But is there anybody here that I'm not considering that because you're saying that you don't think that the template is going to be ridiculous, but there is that core of kind of 15 to 20 players, isn't there? Don't you think?
Yeah, I think we've covered most players now. I'm just going to look at team selected by everyone. I've got it stuck on 5 minutes at the moment. Let's just see what this comes up as. Who have we not discussed? Coutinho, Guimaraes, just don't think that's they're 7 mil and 6 mil respectively. So I do think Martinelli is better than Guimaraes, and I think Grealish is probably better than Coutinho given those fixtures. Talked about Jesus. We talked about 5 mil defenders like Cash, Trippier appear in the sort of top 6-7 defenders. I don't know. Maybe that was just a bit of a anti-statement that I made, that I wish the template wasn't as good. I mean, obviously, there's going to be plenty of variation out there, but maybe not within the Twitter community.
No, true. I just, you're right. I think sometimes, like if a mate or, my brother or whatever messaged me and says, hey, look at my draft, he's always got like 2 or 3 players in there that I've just not even considered.
Yeah. Well, Alisson, interestingly, is their second keeper. Mendy's top by ownership, Alisson next, and then Raya. And then Sanchez. Actually, I've seen a few Sanchez's. Brighton's fixtures don't have on the tip of my tongue. They are... they're 7th, actually, so not too bad. United away and West Ham away, they're in the first 4. Tricky. They've got some really nice home fixtures, and they've got a lot of promoted teams.
There are a lot of people who, when the prices were revealed, absolutely loved Undav, aren't they?
Yeah.
Brighton forward.
Yeah.
Again, it's just like, it remains to be seen, doesn't it? It really
But
does.
That going up, I think difference between 4.5 and 5 mil strikers is nothing, but suddenly 5.5, if he bangs, that could be quite interesting.
Yeah, true. And that's the other thing about that price point. I mean, again, if you've got that striker suddenly and he bangs, you just drop that striker down to him and you've got another 1 million or 1.5 to play with.
And then the final question we had, the 9th one, and the final one on my little list was Son over Kane. So I feel a bit sorry for Son, because a lot of people are sort of almost, I mean, Andy talked about it quite a bit in this stream and was defending his August goal scoring record and stuff, which is fair enough. But I feel almost a little bit sorry for Son. Like, he's done such an incredible season, no one's really considering him. Is that just because he's a midfielder, less favourable than Salah, and people don't really want to have two premium midfielders in.
So hang on, Andy was talking about Son's August goal scoring record.
No, Kane. A lot of people,
Kane's,
I think, were slagging him off, saying, why have you got Kane in there? He's rubbish in August.
Yeah.
But actually, Andy had some stats that, there was that one season where it was just bizarre and he went 4 games or whatever without scoring, but all of the others, he's actually been quite a good starter. And, he's not going to get rotated out if you think Pep Roulette's a problem. Kane, he's going to be on the pitch most of the time. I don't think he's ever been substituted by Conte. I remember someone saying.
Who, Kane hasn't?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just that fear of Haaland, isn't it? I mean, I guess you could change my Son draft and have Kane and Haaland and have 0.5 extra to spend on it. So if you go back, I mean, I think this compare 2 drafts thing on live FPL, and I don't think this was a thing you could do last season, but this is now comparing my triple Chelsea defense with Robertson versus my 3 premiums draft with Son. And Mendy versus Raya, I mean, we've discussed how that comes out pretty even given the 0.5 difference. But then the rest of it, I mean, here you shouldn't really be thinking about the price because really you're thinking about the players you can get. So it is Mendy versus Raya. I think Mendy's slightly on top on that just because Chelsea are a better team. But then it's James against Doherty, which I don't think is much of a contest. And then you've got Robertson against Tomiyasu and Son against Saka. Like, I think the right-hand side wins massively there.
So it's like a job for your favourite tool, Rate My Team. See what that comes out with, and it'll probably be like 0.5 of a point difference, and that'll be enough to sway me completely, and you just throw it out the window and pick the right choice.
No, I wouldn't throw it out the window. I'd just look at the players on the screen and be like, I think this one's much better.
Yeah, you've got 4 solid opportunities to get points there, whereas on the left it's just solid, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, maybe you should take the goalkeepers out of that comparison if you think they're pretty similar, but James against Doherty and Robertson against Tomiyasu, I think, are upgrades worth Son to Saka.
Just on the Mendy thing, I mean, if we look at the best defences is City and Liverpool, so Alisson and Edison's 0.5 more, but then it's Chelsea after that, so you are getting the 3rd best keeper for a little bit more. I'm just wondering if what was I trying to prove here? If there are sort of multiple keepers above Chelsea, but we looked earlier, they are 3rd, so it's decent.
Yeah. The one thing I do need to do on live FPL, which is going to be super annoying, is I actually need to rebuild these drafts once I've put my ID in, because I was building drafts before I got an ID. And so now whenever I reload a new team, it's got like an auto pick team. You start with. And so I've basically at some point got to do the personal admin of rebuilding my favorite drafts in here.
Did you see this on Twitter in the top right of the funny comparisons of biggest dilemmas?
No, I did see them. Brilliant. And again, that's the kind of stuff that when I look at it, it makes me a little bit annoyed about the pricing.
Yeah, true. That is one where I thought, there is some pretty big clangers in there. But I suppose you could point out any of those with any system. But I mean, there's the first 4 there, that just suggests how powerful big at the back is, and that those 4 defenders are in there.
Yeah, but this is the thing. This is the thing. Imagine how fun it would have been if almost all the forwards were like 2 million cheaper or 3 million cheaper than they are. Like Calvert-Lewin is 8 million.
I know, yeah, 1 million off the strikers and 1 million onto the defenders. That would have been great.
Yeah, but even then, I mean, are you really going to go for Calvert-Lewin at 7 million? Like, imagine if they had just totally changed up the game and said, right, people like Calvert-Lewin are going to be 6, and people like, Nketiah are still going to be. If Nketiah was still like 5.5. I mean, it just would have made it more fun because you would have seen some people who would have gone with, I'm going to go for these forwards because they represent massive value. And then other people would be like, no, I'm still going with these defenders. They're still better. Whereas then you look at these things, there's nobody who's going to be picking. Surely nobody going to be with three strikers starting. Although I have seen some drafts with Haaland, Kane and Jesus up front.
Wow.
So I say there's going to be nobody in a game of 9 million people. going to be somebody doing everything, aren't there? Be people captaining Guimaraes on the first day, won't they? So
probably as.
probably as. I was going to say. Is there any of those questions that we haven't covered?
No, I am pretty. I don't know how many yawns you've counted, but I'm happy to wrap this up soon if you are.
I'm feeling pretty pumped actually. I think
God.
I am pretty excited about the season now. I am going on holiday at the start of August though, so I need to have my team pretty well locked in before I go away.
I don't think you can do any of you can't be watching pre-season friendlies on the beach.
Well, Kate's told me, because we're actually going away for her sister's wedding, and she's basically told me that if I try and do a podcast while we're in Italy, she'll divorce me. So I might have to cue Tom up officially to get him on, but we should definitely get Tom on actually for once he's built a few drafts and see what he's thinking.
Absolutely, yep. See if he's joined the Onion League, see if he's active. That's important, and then get him on.
Was he in the Onion League last season? Don't remember.
I thought so. Maybe not. I thought he was a loyal supporter.
Well, exactly. He's a contributor, isn't he? So,
should we leave it there?
Yes, indeed. And as an update for Darren Bayliss, who I know will have made it this far into the Darren, my internet is upgraded or will be upgraded on I think it's the 15th of July to 500 meg download. So it's going to be ridiculous. Think how fast your WhatsApp, Twitter messages will come in after that.
Yeah, all the abuse and the Stockport updates. Can't wait for that in HD.
The Stockport updates where I just send like a couple of eyes or whatever, like, oh, look at this. Amazing. Thanks so much for the time, Shlee. I love chatting FPL with you. So I'm excited to be doing it for the rest of the season. And Andy did say, if you want to grow your channel, the best thing to do are first drafts. So
yeah, I did hear that actually. It was funny and just a good advice to just start it, which is kind of what we've done. So yeah, funny that 25 episodes of season 1. We'll see what season 2 brings. This is probably, we didn't do the guessing game, did we? How long this is going to be? I think this is probably a bit longer than I thought, but yeah, for sure has been very interesting. And we will be back hopefully next week because Nick's not on holiday and won't get in trouble.
I do like doing a 90 minutes though.
Okay.
Just, it feels right.
Just feels like a football game.
Indeed.
Great. Cool. Well, thanks again for your time, and thanks everyone for listening. If you enjoyed what you've seen and heard, please give it a like, a share, and subscribe. And YouTube comments always welcome as well. Let us know what you think. But
indeed, we'll be trying to do a podcast version of this as well, because we appreciate that people like to be able to listen to it and not necessarily all YouTube members. Me spaffing the cash on live FPL and YouTube and everything else, but we'll try and upgrade certain things this season. So stay tuned.
Indeed. All right, everyone. Bye.
Bye.